The Imaging Hangout Podcast with Darren Robbo Robertson, Adam Burgess and Tom Cross. Talking anything and everything with a little bit of production chat thrown in for good measure. Dress code, business on top, party on the bottom.
Two fantastic guests again with us this time.
Yeah.
We've got Scottish, Mr. Gordon Lundy.
That's a fine Scottish accent, Adam. Thank you. It was like I was already here.
It's my James Bond, the only James Bond, Mr. Sean Connery.
I love the Scottish accent. I do. It's probably my favourite accent, I've got to say.
Oh, it's very kind of you to say so. I bastardise it to great effect on a daily basis.
Nice.
On the other line, we've got Miles. How you doing, Miles?
You know, I'm hanging in there. Everything's on fire and there's a plague, but, trying to keep high spirits.
There's a plague?
Yes.
Has it been upscaled from a virus to a plague?
Yeah, it's a plague. Screw it. I'm upscaling it.
I've been told that... So I'm from Northeast Ohio in the United States. I live in California now, but I've been told that, or at least we were told, that the Northeast Ohio accent is relatively neutral. I haven't really found that to be the case. You know, you're talking about accents. My uncle has an accent that nobody else in my family has, which is weird. I don't know. I don't think it's that neutral, but what do you guys think? Is this a neutral accent?
No.
It probably doesn't count because I'm in radio and I've probably adjusted how I speak.
Yeah, no, the only neutral accent on the planet is the Australian accent. Come on, let's be honest. We don't have an accent. There's no accent.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah, we should get an Australian on sometime.
You
That'd
should.
be really interesting.
You really should.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's a fucking burn.
Totally. Yeah. No.
I'm just saying it's such a neutral accent, I can never pick it out.
That's it. Yeah. There you go. See?
Is it South African?
Oh, don't start me on that.
Do you guys ever do accents that are not like your actual accent and you have like certain phrases that you say to get into that mode of doing your horrible version of that accent?
100%, yes.
I do that with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
What's your phrase to get into that?
Get to the chopper, of course.
Get to the chopper.
Go on then.
Get to the chopper. I think I said this. I don't know if I said this on one of the podcasts. I actually came up with a drinking game. It's called Where's Arnie? And so I'm sure I said this before. I can't remember, but you have to say a famous phrase from a classic movie in Arnold Schwarzenegger's accent and guess the movie. So you would go like, we're going to need a bigger boat. And you're like, what's the movie? It's like, I don't even know how or why I came up with that. I fucking love Arnie, but yeah.
You're probably
That's some
drunk
bullshit.
at the time.
Sounds like it.
I don't think I could do an Arnie accent well enough to do him saying things that I've never heard him say.
So that's the point. It's got to be shit. That's what's so funny.
I see dead people.
Yeah, see, Tom shit as well.
Have a go, though.
That's no moon.
That's pretty good.
That's all right.
Yeah.
For an Australian accent, the phrase I say to get into that is rise up lights. And if you say that, it sounds like an Australian accent saying razor blades. Rise up lights.
Hey, it does, yeah.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
Right. What was the other one? If you say...
Poor Robbo.
If you say beer can, it sounds like a Jamaican saying bacon.
Beacon.
Go on.
Beacon.
There's
Beer can.
Beer can.
Go on, Miles.
Well, do I have to say beer can with an English accent?
No, with an Australian accent.
Beer can?
There you go.
That's not bad. There's one for Scottish accents as well, apparently. If you say Spice Girls in a thick Scottish accent, it sounds like Space Ghettos in a more American accent.
Well, you're the only one that's going to pull that one off, Gordy, so over to you.
So in really thick Scottish accent, it'd be Spice Girls.
Space ghettos.
Not far off.
Nice.
Well, we can see who the voiceovers are in the room, can't we? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow. This is quite fun.
It is quite fun.
Miles, if you want to, you kind of introduced yourself, but if you want to tell, our three listeners what you do.
So I'm the imaging guy and voice of KIIS FM. I do imaging in one of the three voices of KIIS FM in LA. Also, some of the imaging for Alt 98.7 in LA and The Woody Show and a bunch of other stuff. On the voice work. As you can tell by my stutter.
That was brilliant.
Yeah. And like I sing parody songs about farts sometimes.
Beautiful.
Sounds like a pretty regular imaging gig.
That's actually the thing I'm most known for outside of like people who actually like listeners. I'm known by the listeners as the guy who sings fart songs for the most part.
Nice. And Gordy, what about yourself?
I should check my contract for my job title, but I'm imaging producer for Absolute Radio in the United Kingdom.
Lovely.
And occasional voiceover for some other stations in Scotland, but it doesn't really count.
There's quite a lot of stations, Gordon.
Yeah, but it's quite a lot of commercial messaging.
That is radio these days.
That's true, yes.
You have self-worth.
Oh, thanks.
Do we need to have a chat about this?
No!
How many scripts have you read that start with "in these difficult times"?
Oh, don't.
There's been a few.
Don't.
Robbo's done a runner. Bye.
That's my biggest beef at the moment.
Well, Tom and I have just done one for Bauer. I don't know if you're familiar with the UK radio landscape, Miles, but so you've got the two big companies over here, which is Global and Bauer. Bauer have just consolidated a huge amount of radio stations now, and they did a campaign. It was about Brexit, wasn't it, Tom?
Yeah, the UK exit.
We got an email saying, "Hey guys, do you want to do this campaign for us?" We're like, "Yeah, of course." And it was 72 promos later.
Yeah, the first email said there'd be 10 voiceovers, so we're thinking maybe 10 promos. Okay, fine. No, 74 promos later.
74,
Jesus Christ! Do you reckon we got a message to sell?
Yeah.
And that was actually going back to the accents chat. That was a different accent for each region of the UK. So we had Scottish, Irish, Welsh, and then other regions I won't bore you guys with. But yeah, it was a lot of different voices and sounds.
Thanks for bringing that back on point, because I don't know where I was going with it.
What was the promo about? Selling in the fact that they're consolidating all their stations? Is that what it was about?
No. That was what had happened. So the company has consolidated. It's bought a load of radio stations. So it's trying to put them all under, their various brand umbrellas.
Okay.
And yeah, this is just the campaign that we said yes to. That was way bigger than we realised.
Yeah, it was essentially the radio station talking to local businesses in their area, saying how they can help them for the UK exit.
It's interesting though. There's a lot of that consolidation going on here. In Australia, and just recently a whole bunch of regional breakfast shows got booted in preference for one show coming out of the capital city in each state. And I understand the financial side of things, totally get the business decision, but from a radio veteran of 30-odd years standing, I do wonder where the nursery is going to come from. Like, we've had some amazing announcers here. I'm sure you have in...
Tricky.
Yeah, I'm sure you have in every country. There was the one that comes to mind for me is a guy here called Doug Mulray, who everybody knows Doug Mulray. He did breakfast on Triple M back in the late 80s, early 90s and just killed it. But he started at a little radio station in a town of, 30,000 people. Where do we get that from now? And especially if the breakfast shows in the capital cities are going to be filled by TV personalities and comedians, where's the radio people coming from? So yeah, it's a tough one.
I wonder how much podcasts are going to lead into that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's not to say that anyone who hosts a podcast can just jump into a radio studio and present a show, but it helps you weed out the people that are perhaps have that natural ability.
Yeah,
that's true. And you can also save it in the edit, very much like this podcast. So it's so there is that.
Delete the chaff.
What edit?
I totally agree. Like I've been worrying for a while that there's no like farm club, there's no entry level for people to cut their teeth and learn from people who are in the industry how to do stuff. Mm-hmm. But at this point, it's pretty apparent that, people who are interested in media and content creation and stuff like that, like they already have their own platforms on social media. Yeah. And so that's where they're learning, how to engage with an audience and how to produce content and stuff like that. And, maybe traditional media will need to start reaching out to those people as, producers and talent and stuff like that. But
Yeah, I remember having a conversation a year or two ago. I won't name the radio station, but it was had a conversation with one of the guys there and saying, "Well, why don't you, because you're in a big market, look to like an online celebrity, as it were, like a YouTube star, and say, try and bring those guys in, because they come with a built-in audience as well to a certain extent." The long and short of it was, we can't afford them. They do so well and they make so much money.
Right.
Doing their own thing online that they actually don't need traditional broadcast, which is blew my mind.
Yeah, like Joe Rogan taking his podcast to Spotify.
Yeah.
That's like the Howard Stern XM deal of this generation. You know?
True,
That's it.
Totally.
We'll see more deals like that too, with Amazon doing their podcast series now as well. So all the big money will be focused on podcasting for the next few years.
Yeah, that's right. Well, when we're offered millions for our show, we'll probably take it, I suppose.
Maybe. I just do it for the art, darling. I don't know what you're on about. But over in, say, LA, with the iHeart stuff, where's the training ground for producers? Where do those guys come in now? Because I know certainly, to a certain extent in the UK, the traditional imaging guy they're kind of a jack of all trades to a certain extent. They are, like, they're cutting video and they're doing online stuff and maybe some GIFs for the website, or they're doing all of these bits and pieces. Is that happening in America as well?
Not that I'm aware of. I honestly don't know any young audio producers in radio. Everybody I know who's doing imaging is either a program director who didn't really want to do it, but they don't have the budget for a producer anymore, or they've been, doing it for roughly as long as I have, which at this point, I'm coming up on like 20 years. I don't see new people getting into imaging really. There is a colleague of mine who I adore, John Manuel. He has like a protege, who he was able to, work with his manager and get some hours allocated to a girl named Valerie so he can teach her how to do imaging. And so she helps him out with some of his production work. And so, but that's really just him taking the initiative and realizing like, we need some new blood in this game. But yeah, to answer your question, I don't know. I don't really see it happening.
Do you have, or do you get what we'd call work experience in, those kind of guys that they might be, I don't know, like the boss's friend's son or something, who's like a spotty teenager that wants to come in and learn the ropes?
Well, we have internship programs with, colleges, but I don't personally take interns because like the amount of time that they get for their internship isn't really, it ends up just being like an extra job for me to train somebody, which not to be a dick, but I don't have time like to train anybody.
Time is precious.
And by the time they're trained and they're able to start doing stuff, like they're gone, and now I have to train somebody else. Like I don't know. I just don't really have the energy to devote to it that I would need to in order to do a good job. Yeah,
they've taken all of that creativeness and all the tricks of the trade that you've taught them and taken them off to earn some good money online somewhere.
Yeah. Joe Rogan was my intern.
Joe Rogan was your intern? Is that what you said?
Yeah, and look at him now. He's making millions. Taking all that know-how.
He transferred it well.
I think part of it's due to a shrinking sort of, not industry, but a shrinking workforce in some of the stations. I mean, when I started, this is back in the dinosaur days, but when I started, I was in the cart room. So I was basically transferring stuff from quarter-inch tape onto the tape carts and making sure that they all sounded good and weren't out of phase and putting them in the studio. But that job's gone now. You know what I mean? So I think some of the opportunities so you don't have to have an intern, but it's actually someone that's working at the station who at the same time is learning the imaging or production craft. A lot of those positions have disappeared.
A huge amount have disappeared, and I think the technology means more and more I'm hearing about producers using templates that have a one knob solution for their plugins.
Yeah.
They don't have any concept of how a compressor works, so they get a decent one knob compressor, which they just turn until it sounds good. And when we started, I think it's safe to say none of us had that.
Hang on, can you go back a second? There is a decent one knob plugin, is that what you're saying?
Well, depending on the sound you're going for, then perhaps so.
Where's this going?
I'm not advocating such a thing, but I'm just saying that as the technology improves, the need for the training and the knowledge to know what you're doing with any of it is disappearing.
You've got to have a real passion.
I agree.
Yeah, who needs that? Just get ozone elements and put on the broadcast radio preset and you're good to go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or Neutron and let it do it for you. Let it EQ and compress for you. But you've got to have a passion for it ultimately, haven't you? So that's what we're going to see. The people who come through are going to have the passion and the drive to want to succeed in the industry.
Yeah.
And in the UK, we do have a few academies. Bauer have an academy, which you've been involved with, Gordon, haven't you?
Yeah, a while back. The interesting thing for me is how's that kind of stuff going to work when people aren't in offices and studios together anymore.
Yeah.
How are you going to find the people that are interested and keen? How do you capture that when they're not ever looking over your shoulder seeing what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that with all jobs actually, that I've said this to friends, like they're going, oh, well, it's great that we can work from home for a bit longer now. And, it might stay like that. Or, when we can go back, we'll only have to do 2 days a week. And I think that's fine. But a lot of companies have the working ethos. And if you work for them now, you get what that is. You get what the vibe is to work for the BBC or iHeart or Global or whatever it might be. As soon as you start taking on people that haven't done 5 days a week inside the building, that not necessarily that don't understand, but don't get a real feel for what it was before or that working structure, they could take the piss. They could be like, no one can see what I'm doing, so I'll go and do my own thing. That working ethos just starts to disintegrate once you move from those kind of first generation that did used to work in the building.
Yeah, but I mean, they either get it or they get fired.
Yeah, yes. Well, my next question was creativity. So where does the creativity come from for you guys on a day-to-day? Is it something that you are reactive to? Is it something you try to be proactive to? And how much can you really get away with? Because we actually, it was, I don't know if you've got this to hand, Robbo, but Tom sent an ID that was made for Kerrang. I don't know if you're familiar with that brand, Miles. It's a rock brand.
Yeah.
And the station, God, we're going about 10 years ago now. When did it?
Yeah, that'd be a 2010 ID, I think.
2010 ID.
Maybe earlier than that.
And it was, they could get away with so much stuff, and it was hilarious. And so Tom sent this one round yesterday, which I forwarded on to Robbo, and it had me in stitches. I don't know if you can, I don't want to say too much. Can you play that, Robbo?
Give me a second.
Kerrang's a magazine too, right?
Yes, It was originally a magazine.
There was a project, I swear this guy wrote for Kerrang. I think his name was Keith Bergman, maybe. If I get that wrong, I apologize. It might be a completely different guy. He definitely at least wrote for blabbermouth.net, and I think Kerrang also, but it was the coolest project I've ever worked on. It never aired, and I don't have any of the audio anymore due to a hard drive crash, but it was an all heavy metal station, and the imaging was like a radio serial, drama, sci-fi horror thing about this post-apocalyptic wasteland with mutants all over the place, and this guy's going around killing mutants, and the music that you're listening to on the station is what he's listening to in his earbuds while he's going around killing mutants. And Keith guy wrote the scripts for these things, and Dave Fox was the voice, and it was fucking incredible, and it's a travesty that I could not find any of this stuff. It was such a cool project. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
All right. That's better than what we're going to play.
This is the sound of a child being hit by a car at 40 miles an hour. This is the sound of a child being hit by a car at 30 miles an hour. This is the sound of a child being hit on by Michael Jackson.
Can I stay with you tonight?
Think.
Kerrang 105.2.
God damn.
Fucking hell.
It was a different time.
It was. It only feels like yesterday.
So Gordon would have taken over. Gordon used to do the imaging for Kerrang, didn't you, Gordy? And you took over from the guys who did that kind of stuff.
Yes, which obviously going into that knowing what they had been and what they had done is a lot to walk into.
Yeah.
And knowing that not only am I not necessarily geared up for that kind of level of writing, but knowing that I can't really push it that hard anymore anyway.
The time had changed a bit, hadn't it?
Yeah. But nonetheless, it was massively creative still. And I'm still a firm believer in the best stuff I think I've done is always when there's restrictions around it. Half of the ideas I come up with are because, okay, well, they've told me I can't say this. So what can I say that sort of gets close to it? What can I suggest? What naughty double entendre can I put in there that will make me chuckle away each time I hear it?
Shall we play you the travel promo, the Kerrang travel promo? Because I think this one demonstrates what you just said nicely.
Yes. Okay.
Third word. 2 syllables. Sounds like brickhead.
Lockslicker.
Muckface.
Oh, massive kitties.
No, it's too many syllables.
Oh, yeah.
Jeremy Hunt.
Gravel.
Gravel.
Sounds like gravel.
Kerrang Radio Travel.
Every day at rush hour. Kerrang Radio.
Wait, can you play that one more time?
That's so good.
I didn't realize what was happening until like 2 of the jokes already came out.
All right, here we go, one more time.
I like doing that because these kinds of things run for ages.
Yes. Okay.
Third word. 2 syllables. Sounds like brickhead.
Lockslicker.
Muckface.
Oh, massive kitties.
No, it's too many syllables.
Oh, yeah.
Jeremy Hunt.
Gravel.
Gravel.
Sounds like gravel.
Kerrang Radio Travel.
Every day at rush hour. Kerrang Radio.
It's such a creative way of doing a really boring promo, but it's fantastic.
That's amazing.
It's my favourite thing about that as well is that was a group of college kids that were in for a visit for an afternoon. And whilst they're getting shown around the radio station, I'm setting up a stereo pair of mics in the studio, ready to grab them and pounce as they come past and go, hey, who wants to be on the radio?
Oh, that's great.
Awesome. Nice.
And another one you made for the Queen's Jubilee weekend, you really pushed the boundaries with this one. Was this one that the PD approved, would you say? Or?
This was one the PD did not approve. This was one which I came up with the concept whilst producing the ones I'd already written and recorded. And I'm someone who, when I come up with something which makes me laugh, regardless of how bad it is, I have to get it I have to exercise it from my brain, or I can't move on with anything else in the project. So I will write a script that I know will never make it to air, just so I can send it to someone else and go, hey, look at this thing that we'll never do. Because otherwise it just rolls around in my, it's like a blockage in my brain. So this was something that I made because it was in my head and I knew it couldn't go to air. And the PD was correct to say that it wouldn't go to air.
Kerrang Radio. Like a third world country at the end of a drought, we're celebrating a long reign.
The Jubilee weekend. Kerrang Radio.
That's very good.
It wasn't that one, sorry, it's the wrong one.
That's still fantastic. Not as rude, but...
I should clarify as well, for those that don't know what the Queen's Jubilee is, it was her, 50th anniversary of being the Queen. And so it was a big celebration. So it's referred to as the Jubilee.
Hats off to the old girl. It's jogged my memory, one that we did with Bam Bam when he was on Capital. And he was the old breakfast jock that was on KIIS 100 for many years.
Wasn't he on the Flintstones as well?
That's the one.
When he went over to Capital on one of the late shows there, he had this fantastic opener. And it was, I'm trying to remember who's, I think, someone in the sales team, it was their kid, and it was lots of 1K toner, and it was making it sound like this kid was swearing throughout the opener.
My station.
Check it out, that boy needs therapy.
At the beginning, a little boy went missing.
All I could think about was
Bam Bam.
Bam Bam. This is the Lord.
Bam Bam.
Capital.
95.8. If you're worried that tender young ears might be offended by some of the things Bam Bam might say, don't worry. We've got a with a beeper. This is so quick on the draw, even an innocent little guy like me can't fool him. I promise, no more swearing. Face go.
Bam Bam.
kid wasn't actually swearing. We were just getting him to read various bits of copy that we knew that we could put a 1K tone in the middle and make it sound like it was very rude. But it was, I can't take credit for it. It was genius, not me. But
that is a handy trick as well, I find, if you're doing a parody song and you can't come up with a good line. Because with a song, the structure is fixed, and if you can't replace a line, I find that bits of words and just some swear bleeps is enough to fill it in if the context's right.
I feel like I played it too safe when I was sending samples now that I'm listening to this stuff, because I have way funnier stuff.
Well, the thing being that you may also still be in a job come the end of next week. Whereas
The Woody Show ran a parody that I did 2 or 3 years ago. They took this parody song and turned it into like a cartoon. I just thought it would be funny to make a pun on the 21 Pilots band name, 21 Pirates, and then recreated one of their songs as a bunch of pirates singing it.
That's right.
Here it comes.
I just want to stay in the sun where I find I know it's hard sometimes. Pieces of peace in the sun's peace of mind. I know it's hard sometimes. Yeah, I think about the end just way too much. But it's fun to fantasize. All my enemies who wouldn't wish I was. But it's fun to fantasize. Yo ho, yo ho, yo ho ho. I'm falling, so I'm taking my time on my ride. Yo ho ho, I'm falling, so I'm taking my time on my ride. Taking my time on my ride.
Nice.
I had to really commit to this. That's a lot of work. There are no accordion, karaoke versions of that song. So that was a lot of work.
I like the backing vocals too.
That's what I was fixing on as well. I think it was fantastic.
Yeah, really good. Now, you do some singing in one of the promos you sent us. Was it the Cash promo or the...
Yeah, I think it was probably the Cash promo. So the Cash promos I have a lot of fun with because it's really just, hey, we're giving away money. And those are my favorite promos to write for because, money can be anything, what can you spend money on? And the theme of the promo can be whatever. And so I feel like those are usually the ones that I just go nuts on. But I forget what I did with this one, actually.
Alt 98.7 has your chance to win $1,000.
Not every cash could be a major bummer, but our stimulus package could make your summer. You can score a grand 12 times a day, so when we call you back, pick up the phone, okay? Alternative income.
It's summertime. Live a little. Get yourself an extra $1,000. You deserve it. Especially during a year like this. This has not been fun. Keep it here for your shot to win alternative income. Every weekday, all day, from 6 to 6. From LA's new alternative, Alt 98.7.
I started doing singing imaging like that. I was inspired by Roger Keeler, who's in Denver, Colorado, and he's a genius. And he would... I heard him mention a long time ago that listeners would call in and request his promos and sweepers. And he wasn't saying this in a bragging way. But, if I had an example of his stuff to play for you, you would get it. And it's very catchy and, it's imaging and promotion as content and not just hey, we're barking, fucking a laundry list of stuff at you, which obviously you guys, know how to make imaging as content. That's, why you do what you do. But, so I feel like that's the objective when I sing something like that. It usually doesn't happen. It may happen once or twice in my entire career, but that's the objective. And it's a lot of fun to do. And, when you don't really want to just drone on about, hey, what would you spend $1,000 on? Oh, I would probably spend it on bills. Nah, fuck that. Let's sing a song about, and put it over a surf beat because it's summertime, stuff like that.
Absolutely. It's such a talent to do that kind of stuff. And it's certainly not something that, that is my forte. And we had this conversation, I think, a couple of episodes ago with Matt and George. And, hats off to producers like yourself and Gordon that could do something like that. And, it's certainly not something that comes naturally to me.
I'd put my hand up as well and say it doesn't come naturally to me.
I'd call you a liar.
But that's my shtick for it, is that everything's at least a little bit shit, because that's what makes it funny. Like for the things that I do, the 21 Pirates thing is all beautifully done. And you know, the use of cannons as percussion and stuff is genius. But I'm not set up for doing that properly, and I would be manually editing the beats with sound effects instead of bothering to sample it and do it properly. And so therefore I'll run out of steam for it, and I'll get a bit bored, and I'll do a bit of a shit job. But that just works for our brand.
You play it down, Gordy.
No, it's honestly, I regularly now get emails from the breakfast team going, hey, we're going to do this competition and we need a really bad version of this song done on whatever instrument. And I cannot play keyboard well at all. So it's like search and peck is how I describe it. That's my style of keyboard playing, but that is what makes it sound funny to the listener, I think, as well, for that sort of stuff.
It adds a kind of a tweeness to it.
I think a bit like program directors who turn around and tell you that a promo's been on for 3 days and is burnt and we need a new version, because they're listening to the station, you know, hour in, hour out every day. I think a bit like that for us as production guys. We hear those imperfections though, but for Joe Blogg's listener, they don't hear that. They just hear they get the idea, they hear the vibe of it, and that's what they love. I don't know that those imperfections are so obvious to someone on the other end of the speaker though.
I guess it depends on the level of the imperfection.
Of course.
Some of mine are pretty imperfect. But in terms of...
It adds to the charm.
In terms of stuff that people will hear at home and will... You know, for a listener to make any comment, good or bad, on what we do, I think is amazing. To get that,
well, it means you've got through to them. So
I still think it's fairly rare, and so that's for me the thing I enjoy is the stuff that I've made where I've written something that I know I'm not going to get to replace for months on end, and the aim is for there to be a couple of really not that funny, but just slow burn jokes that you might hear it 10 times. And there was something, a presenter on one of our other rock stations got in touch about a month ago and said, did you write a script about something or other, whatever it was? And I said, no, I don't think so. And he sent me a copy, and suddenly it all came flooding back. Now, this is a radio station I hadn't worked for in about 3 years. And this piece of audio is still running. And he'd been listening to it for at least 3 years and hadn't got the joke until that
day. Maybe that says more about him than the piece of production.
Maybe so. But that to me, that's the ideal.
That's amazing.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Even that first one we played with the...
the charades one.
Yes, charades. That was the word I'm looking for, the game charades. I mean, you're stacking them so quickly next to each other that actually you're probably going to miss a couple of them the first time round. And also, if you're not intently listening, you're in the car and things happening around you. The fact that can be played time and time again and you'll pick up a few more words each listen to make yourself laugh, just really works.
And because it's filling, we're ticking a contractual box that we have to talk about the travel. But there's no client message to get across. There's no call to action. It is just, it's either we put that on or there's dead air.
You had mentioned mistakes and errors in the production that are acceptable. Like if you were describing that to somebody who is like new to production and they're passionate about creating content, like what would you describe as like acceptable mistakes and errors versus unacceptable mistakes and errors?
Ones that are funny.
Yes, true. It's hard to. I guess it's hard to say. It depends on what the finished product ends up like. A prime example of mistakes, and this is totally outside of imaging, but I know that Adam will appreciate it. The multi-tracks of Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
The mistakes in Freddie Mercury's piano playing are fairly evident when you listen to it soloed.
What do you mean?
I know, but that's recorded music when you couldn't go back and quantize things and fix wrong notes.
Exactly.
It has a humanity to it.
That's a great way to say it. It like the mistakes that give it humanity are good.
But then on the other hand, you've got something like Jason Derulo, who brought out Savage Love, which was I think was a TikTok.
Yeah, it's originally a TikTok loop from a Kiwi producer who'd made it at home, put it on TikTok, and it got picked up. Became a massive song on TikTok. Jason Derulo then wanted to sample it. Became a huge hit worldwide. And it's basic as.
That trumpet sample at the beginning is so bad.
Yeah, it's Fruity Loops. It's
It
made
is.
on Fruity Loops.
But kids don't
care,
I don't think,
couldn't
on
give
the
a
whole.
shit.
I mean,
as long as it's cool and catchy.
Yeah, that's it.
It'll be interesting to kind of get a feel for how kids experience older music, and I'm putting my fingers in the ears and doing that inverted commas thing, speech marks around older music. When I was a kid, you could tell stuff that came from the 70s and 80s because of its sound. And, you know, now knowing more about the sound, I comprehend a little bit of what that difference is, because between what I considered old and what I could hear was current. Now, are kids going to know what is old based on hearing drum beats that are slightly out of time, hearing notes that aren't right, hearing things that aren't as heavily crushed and produced? I'm sure that I remember hearing about kids now sing and can sing very well, but they sing like they have auto-tune on.
Yes.
Or they're that good with hitting the right pitch.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And so if they can recreate that sound, because that's what they've grown up with.
But they think that's natural.
Yes, that's the crazy. So what else do they hear that they think is natural?
Mm-hmm, totally.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think you also have to keep in mind that, you know, the trends of music swing like a pendulum. You know, like it'll go toward inhuman perfection and, eventually people will get tired of that. And I'm sure it'll swing back to, intentionally imperfect stuff.
Look at where grunge came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's a prime example. Grunge was dirty and imperfect in its recordings, and then that was the reaction, in my opinion anyway, to people recording in the 80s where they would isolate individual drum hits. They'd do a take just hitting the snare so that you didn't get any bleed from any other instruments. It was a complete reaction to that.
That was Phil Collins, that very 80s drum snare sound.
Yeah,
with the
gated
reverb and stuff. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, the gated snare that came through a talkback loop.
Yeah.
I guess everyone saw the reaction recently on social media to the two young kids who watched the Phil Collins drum solo.
Yes, that went huge.
It was fantastic to see. It was a viral video.
I still find it very bizarre how people are drumming up millions of hits because you want to know what their reaction is to something. Just the mind boggles.
I know we're pushed for time, so we just want to play some more imaging for Miles.
Can you play the Ice Cube one that I sent you? We hit like 115 degrees here a couple weeks ago, and so that was just majorly inspiring. Like, I have a lot of thoughts about this, and I got to get them out. And so this Ice Cube sweeper came out, and this is one of those happy accidents. Like, it's not a perfect read, and I liked it being not perfect.
102.7 KIIS FM.
It's so hot right now that Ice Cube had to change his name to Water.
I love how he kept you laughing as well. It's great.
Yeah, that was a genuine laugh. I couldn't keep it together.
We have touched on that stuff before, haven't we, with voiceovers like yourself, Miles, that will do all the kind of the straight stuff, and then they'll just throw in some wackiness at the end, because why not? And you go, that's the stuff I'm going to use.
That's the gold.
That's genius.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There it is, yeah.
And if you think about the process behind that, you know, like the person who's improvising on, in front of the microphone, they've taken your script, they've read it through out loud, they've digested what the message is about, and then they distill it into what, how they would, organically present that message. And of course it sounds better because it's real,
Yeah.
I'm very quickly on that idea of, the voiceover taking it and doing their thing with it. In many ways, I'm just a really lazy director when it comes to voiceovers. But also, I kind of go by a rule of, if you give someone the script, there's the old thing of the first take's always the best. If you give someone a script and they read it through once and they do it wrong, they don't get it, then you try and correct them. And you say, all right, you've got that wrong. Here is the idea of how that sentence should work. If you do it again and it still isn't right, you can try a third time if you want and get them to parrot it, but it's not going to be that good. And either you've written the line wrong, because if they've not got it twice, are the listeners going to get it? Or you've picked the wrong voice.
Right. Yeah, I saw an actor say something like that on Twitter recently. That was, I feel like if you do a good job casting, you don't have to do that much directing.
Yeah.
Yes, fair comment.
I think it's also how you treat the VO too. If you sort of go through and you point them in the right direction and you give them some indication of what you want, and you're sort of pushing them, in a direction that you hear it in your head, but then you get to the end and you say, okay, now I've got what I want. Give me one how you hear it. And I suppose what I'm trying to say is you've now educated them into, okay, this is sort of the meaning of this sentence. This is what's needed here, blah, blah, blah. But then they go back to putting their own perspective on all that information that you've just given them. Sometimes that can be the killer take too, though.
Do you find that you write differently for different voices?
Yeah, I write with the voice of the promo in my head. Yeah.
When I was at Capital, because in the UK a lot of things were London focused, you could probably get a lot of voiceovers into the actual building and you could make eye contact with them, put them behind the mic, and you could go through scripts with them. How does that work with you, obviously being the producer and the voiceover, but do you get, say, maybe an MP3 from a producer or a PD going, right, here's my take on it, now can you do it because I want it a bit like this? Or are they on the phone ever? Or is it just, here it is on an email?
Oh, you mean when I'm voicing stuff?
When you're voicing stuff, yeah.
I did a session yesterday on Zoom. It was a first session with a new client, and they just wanted to make sure that the vibe was right and that I didn't have any issues with their copy. On the other hand, generally I don't get a ton of direction on stuff. It's pretty much just like, here's the script, and if you want to ad lib, go for it. And then if there's like weird regional pronunciations, an MP3 is amazing. All the stations I voice in Canada will send an MP3, which is beautiful. Chef's kiss. Mwah!
Some tough place names there.
Yeah, I have to speak French sometimes. I don't speak French.
Of course, yeah.
But it's generally the direction is pretty sparse. So I'll read it through, as it's written, and then if I'm feeling inspired, I'll do my own take on it after that. Hopefully, especially if it's something that's clearly meant to be entertaining and creative.
Do you take that direction? Do you like it? Because I've had only a couple of experiences in my time where I'll say, oh no, and can we do this? And can we put a pause here? Da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. And I've actually had I think maybe twice. Oh, I know how to do it. It's fine. I'm like, oh, okay, sorry, just trying to help. I mean, I don't know if it's an ego thing or whatever, but are you cool with that? The more direction, the better?
I wouldn't say the more direction, the better. There's a balance. There's, I like to know what vibe we're going for and everything, but when it gets to just parroting stuff, I'm like, okay, I feel like maybe I'm just not the right cast for this. Like the earlier discussion we were having about it, and I tend to take really specific direction. I overreact to it to the point where it ruins my read sometimes. So and so that's something that I need to work on personally, is like, okay, don't overreact to it. Like, take what they're saying, interpret it, and make it what it means to me, and then see what comes out of that. Because if I'm too conscious of what the direction is, then I'm not as conscious of what the message is. And it's not going to print in a believable way.
Does it take you out of that creative headspace as well?
Yeah, you have to be committed and invested in what you're saying. They have to be your words when they're coming out of your mouth. And if you're second guessing yourself, it's not going to 100% be there. Gordy,
your voiceover is obviously a comedian as well.
It's considering that, to the best of my knowledge, if you've ever seen Matt Berry's show Toast of London. To the best of my knowledge, a lot of the whole thing is obviously taken from his own experiences, his own life. I believe there's one particular character, and it's in the studio scenes where he's being a voiceover. One of the people through the glass is based on someone that used to work at Absolute Radio and Virgin Radio.
This is not Clem Fandango, is it?
Okay, Stephen, you ready to go?
Yeah.
Familiar enough with the song, you know where you're going with it? Okay, so just sing it normally and then do the short voiceover mentioning the product at the end.
All right.
Hi, Stephen. This is Clem Fandango. Can you hear me?
Who the fuck are you?
Clem's with us for a few weeks on work experience. Can you hear me, Stephen?
Yeah, I can hear you, Clem Fandango.
Just, if you sing it normally, then do the short voiceover mentioning the product at the end.
He's just fucking said that.
That's based... Oh, that's fantastic. That's made my day.
No, it's not someone... I was told a name, and it wasn't anyone that I have worked with, but it's not come from Matt himself. But either way, that means going into that job, having seen clips of that show, it's kind of, okay, well, now I have to be slightly careful about how I intend to direct him. And again,
the pressure's on.
Yeah, but that's also why I take the exact same approach as I do with any other voiceover, which is... at all times, I am also attempting to write something that they will like, because I want to write something that is their sense of humor, and it's more important with him because if we write something and he doesn't want his name on it, he'll say, "No, I don't want to do that one."
Yep.
And he's right to, because people know it's him.
Well, absolutely. But the thing is with him, it's you have hired him not as just a voiceover, but to be the comedian, because he pretty much plays himself in any program that he's done. It's always a caricature of that. And that's what you're getting with him. So it's kind of understandable. Do we have anything that we can play with Matt Berry on?
Yeah, we have the one I really liked you sent, Gordon, was the tuned in parody ID. Kind of piss take of pop radio.
If I was on any other radio station in the UK, I'd sound like this.
Real music.
Manhattans. Christ on a bike, no wonder you're listening to us.
I love that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That is amazing.
I like it.
That's the sad thing being that, like, my boss came to me and said, have you got like auto-tune, like proper auto-tune on your work laptop? And I was like, nah, I've just got whatever bullshit light version came with it. And he's like, yeah, same as me. So he went and got another production company to do the auto-tuned bit, because none of us genuinely have used it enough to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Yeah.
No, it's not what we do. So
it's not your brand.
That said, if I am looking for a job in another week, I can do all that stuff, piece of piss. It's fine.
I love that anti-ID though. Like, this is not what we do. I think that's great.
I think I said to you recently, Tom, it's sometimes it can be hard to explain what you do, and it's easier to say what you don't do.
Totally.
Like if you're in a market that is full of things which do brands which do similar things, and you can say, well, here's the bits we don't do, that can be quite useful.
Hopefully they're the bits that everybody doesn't enjoy.
Absolutely. I implore you, Miles, to YouTube this guy.
Oh, yeah, Toast of London. I love that show. It's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, you know? Oh, fantastic. Yeah, what was the other one? He did the IT Crowd, but the English version.
He was amazing on that show.
I know there was an American. Yeah. Father!
There's I'm immediately, of course, thinking of things I should have sent over to you instead. But there's a couple of things I've done where in the session he's read it and then he's laughed. Like I kind of a proper stopped and had a laugh at it.
Yeah.
And he has won, he's won Baftas as a comedy writer. So to me, if like that's the gold, if I can write something and he considers it to be funny. And that's also why, we're saying about direction and stuff. Yeah. I kind of let him barrel through because I don't want to bog him down with, oh, can you do that one again? Because when he gets to ones that are actually good, he'll do them again anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, great comment.
It's a testament to you and the writing and how enjoyable he clearly finds it.
Well, I don't know if enjoyable might be pushing it a little bit far, but he puts up with it. He's put up with it for 10 years.
Miles, one more thing would you like to play before we say goodbye?
If you want to pick a random thing, I'll tell the story behind it. And honestly, like, this podcast is much funnier and loose than I expected. I would have gone with some riskier choices had I known that.
Clearly, you listened to the last 6 episodes.
Yeah. No, this is great. I've really enjoyed talking to you guys.
I really enjoyed the turn up weekend.
Have a listen.
Yo, it's the Woody Show. Hey. Coming at you with another Alt 98.7 Summer Weekend Turn Up.
We're up all night to get Hey, it's Hudson. No slow songs. You are getting stacked. Nothing but fun music all weekend.
Yo, it's Harm. The turn up starts this morning with the Woody Show and continues all day long, and then tomorrow, and then the next day too. It's a long one. The Summer Weekend Turn Up is back on LA's new alternative, Alt 98.7.
So the reason I sent that one was because, like, it's not like people have never done a beat mix, you know, in a promo on an alternative station before, but it's not super common, and I honestly don't really do them a whole lot. But this weekend feature that we have on Alt 98.7, where you know, we're breaking the format, playing you know, like hip hop songs. You know, just fun music as sort of like an escape from the doom and gloom of 2020. And I felt like that was appropriate to flex that muscle on those promos. And, you know, it's not funny. It's pretty basic and, you know, just like a hook promo telling you like what we're going to do this weekend. But I think the production sounds pretty cool. And the secret weapon in that, I will divulge, was there's this website called barbangers with a Z.com, and basically it's, you know, earlier we were talking about imperfections of songs from the analog era where they're not quantized. And so what Barbangers does is they take like all music and quantize it to make it easy for DJs, like bar DJs and stuff, to be able to play hits from any era, any genre, and be able to mix them more easily. And so they'll beef up and kind of modernize the beats on older songs. And so anyway, it's like $30 a month, and this site has been like a godsend for DJ pool, alternative imaging for me.
Yeah, no, it's a great promo. I love the energy to it and the flow, because there's completely different BPMs there, and you've really kept the flow going great throughout. It's really cool.
Thank you. It was fun.
I guess it's one thing that we do get feedback on that everyone seems to love. It's the geeky bit. Plugins. Is there anything out there that is a staple of your day-to-day that you couldn't live without, or is there anything that's a little bit special that you know, you wouldn't mind divulging, or maybe you want to keep it as your secret weapon? I don't know.
Well, Gordon's is clearly Waves tune.
Oh yeah. Use it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
What have you got,
what
guys?
A secret weapon.
My plugin use is pretty basic. I actually don't like to use a ton of effects because I feel it most of the time it makes the VO hard to understand. Yeah, I don't know. I don't use a ton of effects. My plugin usage is just sort of like processing and whatnot. I will say a secret weapon when it comes to processing that I barely understand is dithering. You know, for the longest time, people would say that like my mixes sounded brighter than others, and I never really knew what to attribute that to until I noticed that my L1 Plus Ultra Maximizer master channel limiter had dithering like just enabled on it by default because of the mastering like preset that I used, and so I googled like what the fuck is dithering. And, oh, that does that thing that people said that I do. Okay, got it.
Happy accidents. Yeah.
I love it. That's great, though. That's exactly what we were talking about earlier. Totally. Happy accidents.
I'm going to give two things, neither of which are what you asked for.
Brilliant. Fantastic.
For plugins. As ever. Totally useless. One of them I still have in a rack in the studio at work, and now sitting upstairs at home. TC Electronics Finalizer multiband compressor, which is a hardware unit. It's been around for ages. That crunching away and distorting, and that to me was the sound of Kerrang when I was working there.
everything went through that.
Yeah, and we had them on the mics in the studios, and we had them in the production studio for, with different settings, obviously. So that's one thing. I still have it. I still occasionally use it. And the most recent thing that's gone onto mine is Source Connect. It's handy. You can have it so it routes directly from your voiceover into Pro Tools. You can send audio out to them from Pro Tools and back in. And we are currently using the web version, I know. This one, the main reason for me that it's a game changer is because it was a game changer for our voiceover. And he said, he's working at home like most people are now. This is how I'm doing all my sessions now. You need to get it if you want me to do sessions with you. And for him, he sits down, he puts a fader up, I assume, I don't know what his setup is, but he doesn't have to do anything more than open the script and ensure it's connected. He's not worrying about checking levels, because I can tell him if they're too hot, because I it's straight off the preamp. And he's not worrying about the recording, sending it afterwards. All that stuff doesn't seem like a big deal, but if you're a voiceover and potentially a busy one, it's really good.
Streamline it.
Yeah, you finish a session, you go, great, talk to you next time, and you're on to the next job, or you're off to make a cup of tea.
Are you using standard or pro?
I got the trial for Pro, and some of the features on it were amazing, but I just couldn't justify it. So yeah, just the standard one.
The Q Manager, I'm running Pro. Well, I was given Pro by the guys at Source Elements, but just to be upfront about this, this isn't a commercial, but just based on what you were saying, the interesting thing is Pro runs a thing called a Q Manager.
Yeah.
So effectively what happens is when you're recording off Source Connect, you're basically recording Source Connect standard, you're recording a high quality sound that's coming across the internet, but at a compressed rate. What the Q Manager does, and this is what I love about it, is you still hear the compressed audio that comes across the internet, and that's what you're recording at your end. But the Q Manager, you open the Q Manager, you show it the Pro Tools session audio folder that you're using. The Q Manager takes the, let's call it wave standard, high quality audio, and collects all the packets because they take longer to come across. It collects all those packets in the Q Manager. Once it's got it all, it replaces the MP3 quality sort of that came across the web in your audio folder. It replaces that with the high quality WAV stuff. So when you've finished recording, it basically goes, okay, cool, here's what you recorded. Now here's the absolute high quality stuff. Bang, just replaces it. You don't have to do anything. It just replaces it, and bang, you've basically got high quality audio that would never have been able to come across the internet because it's so big it would have taken forever. So that's one nice thing.
It means as well, if you've got a connection like Adam has that drops out all the time.
Oh, you noticed.
Then essentially it's like having the person recording at the other end and then sending you the WAV file. There's a safe recording at their end, which will come
totally.
to you. But also, I think I'm right in saying you can finish a session recording with someone and wait for the Q Manager to do its thing and send you the WAV file, but you can be editing what you have recorded.
Yes, totally.
And use it and have the regions in Pro Tools, and then once it updates with the WAV quality, it will have all those correct edits still.
That's amazing.
What? That's crazy.
It's seamless. That's right. Yeah, totally. It just replaces the audio. So yeah, that's right. So even if it takes 20 minutes for the audio to arrive, you're already working with it. It's no big deal. It just goes bang, here you go.
And
done.
That's how we should end this, I think.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah. That's the out.
What a time to be alive. Cut.
The Imaging Hangout Podcast with Darren Robbo Robertson, Adam Burgess and Tom Cross. Talking anything and everything. Want to join in the conversation? Just message one of the guys.
Broadcasting to Great Britain and the Commonwealth on 247 and 250 meters on the medium wave band. This is Absolute Radio 40s.
We recorded this podcast a couple of weeks before the Audio Production Awards in London, and those that were following the awards might have noticed that our guest, Mr. Gordon Lundy, won the Gold Award for his production. and Gordon has kindly agreed to give us a couple of cuts from that Gold Award-winning entry to stick on the end of the podcast for you guys to have a listen to. So please enjoy.
VE Day. It's time to celebrate. Braid your rations and spend the day with your family inside the Anderson shelter. This timeless message is brought to you by Absolute Radio Fortis, reminding you that you're not the first person ever to have run out of eggs.
The other is in the Albert. Nothing is in the Albert Hall. Why, this is Absolute Radio Fortis.